welcome to December 15th, 2021 Select Board meeting. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Chapter General Law 30A, subsection 20, all public meetings are now being conducted remotely following the requirements of the open meeting law. Please be advised that this meeting is being recorded by broadcast by WACA-TV. The town of Ashland, in response to the continued COVID-19 pandemic, is currently following the guidance from the Ashland Board of Health, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread and the continued spread of COVID-19 virus. The Zoom meeting ID number is 823-2736-5847, and the passcode, if you would like to participate, is 465658. This following information is also provided for the members of the public. If you would like to participate in meeting remotely, to participate by using a phone, you could use this number 1-646-558-8656. And with that, I welcome everybody to this meeting, and I would open up this meeting with citizens participation. Yes, Mr. DeSoni. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How's everybody doing so far?
So far, so good, Mark. How about yourself?
House is quiet. Everybody's quiet. Family getting together. It's Christmas season, so it's kind of feeling the spirit here.
No Grinch in your house, huh?
No, because if there was a Grinch in my house, I'd be probably on the Medicare health alerts and all that stuff. And my dad's doing well, doing better.
Good.
And I would like to congratulate the town manager for canceling the 1050 Main Street meeting last night. Was there a reason why?
Yeah, Mark, so two of our members of that working group could not make it. So we knew about one, but when the other one advised she wouldn't be able to make it, we thought it was best to cancel it.
Yeah, 'cause I tried about 15 minutes and it looked like my Zoom meeting connection wasn't working. So I kept on trying. I was about to hit the screen in front of me. So I said, okay, must not be happening. I saw on the calendar, cancel.
So what's on the calendar is canceled, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I went to other meetings and let me see. Yeah. Mr. Selectman Rob Shearer. Am I officially now a delegate now or what?
No, Mark was elected to the Democratic Town Committee last night, but no, you are not a delegate. That's a different caucus and vote.
So what's it, okay, through the town and to Mr. Shearer, now what does delegate and what I got is the difference?
Well, you're just a member of the town committee. So I don't know if this is official town of Ashland business, but we could talk offline. But you're a member of the Democratic Town Committee, and being a delegate to the convention is a whole separate thing.
So what I'm doing, coming to these meetings and all the other committee meetings, is basically what I'm at right now.
Yes,
I
it's the same.
Yeah,
same thing.
Congratulations, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I finally getting away from the baby steps and doing half a step now.
There you go.
Mark, we didn't mention there is an initiation ritual. We'll get into it.
Would be about the same way as I see on the National Lampoon Animal House.
Yeah, yeah, that's our guidance. That's where we get our guidance from.
So I have to trust. I gotta trust you then.
Yeah,
I screwed up.
Yeah, don't trust people. Yeah, that's my advice. All right. Yeah,
okay,
thanks,
thank
Mark.
you. That's it.
You're all set, Mark? All right, very good. Thank you. Not sure if there's anybody else in the waiting room for citizens participation. Doesn't appear to be. If not, I will go right into old business. And I will start with the 2021 special town meeting recap, and I will turn it over to Mr. Herbert.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So yes, on December 1st, we did have our traditional fall town meeting where we, conducted a number of business items, including allocating our free cash, setting the senior exemption amount, had a few CPC articles, and we also adopted a resolution to send to the legislature regarding greenhouse gas emissions. So it was, I thought it was a good meeting. It was certainly efficient. I want to thank everybody who played a part in getting it up and running and then also conducting it. I will just take a moment to opine a little bit on, some of the correspondence that we had received about maybe us taking satisfaction or being happy in the fact that it was a relatively brief meeting for a town meeting and that, we're the only town that does that. First of all, I think I feel safe saying it for everybody on the meeting here that we encourage participation. We appreciate robust participation. We appreciate questions, but we also, I think it's fair to say that we appreciate civility and we appreciate asking things in a respectful way. And I don't think asking things in a respectful way minimizes the magnitude of questioning or the effectiveness of questioning. It's just good, decent human behavior. So, that being said, I also know a number of other town meetings. We had Jay Tallerman from Lisa Mead's firm, who was town council for the night. He had actually said that he had 2 meetings earlier the previous week that had the exact same situation and, basically ran the exact same length. So I think that about wraps it up. I don't know if anybody else had some thoughts about it.
I had some thoughts. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with a routine town meeting as long as, everybody's transparent about the information. And sometimes things are just routine and you get through them, I did have there was some kind of interesting feedback on the resolution, and it's kind of interesting. So there was a person who told me reminded me that these kind of resolutions that are kind of big picture policy things, that we usually do them at the annual town meeting where attendance is greater. And I think that's a legitimate point. I think, I was very much in favor of this resolution and still am, and maybe there's a reason for the timing. I presume there is. But one of the things I think we should keep in mind when people come to us with these kind of discretionary items or kind of big picture items, that we should at least have a discussion if it's appropriate to hold it for the annual town meeting, which I think is seen as more of the big public attendance, and that we try to minimize, which I think we do anyway. But I thought that was a good reminder. We should just keep that in mind when we're putting together the warrant. And the other thing, and we may well have, I think we would have gone ahead anyway, because I think there's a timing element to this resolution. But I think that's a fair comment. The other thing was someone else pointed out to me is that we should think about whether we as a board should, if we're not making the presentation, if we should make a public statement of support, especially for a warrant article that we've approved to put on the warrant. So I think that's something to think about next time we go through the warrant. If we have a statement to make or care to make a statement, especially about kind of policy-based items, So anyway, that's kind of feedback.
Thank you, Rob.
Joe?
Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, I was just going to agree with Rob on his last point regarding the way articles are presented at town meeting. I think, we have the last few years gotten away from board members presenting the articles and deferring either to Michael or to staff and so on. And I think there's value for us to demonstrate it's our warrant, and I think we should demonstrate that support by by introducing the articles. Normally, if there's any kind of financial component that's anything involved, we're turning it over to a staff member anyway, but I like to see us get back to that.
I don't disagree, but I think this past special town meeting was unique in and of itself. But going back to doing what we used to do at the annual town meeting, I think that's something we should go back and continue and go back, at least announcing and introducing the warrant articles via the board members. So I don't disagree with that.
Yeah,
Right.
I think one of the reasons we got away from it is that sometimes board members would say something that was maybe conflicting with what we were trying to accomplish. And so we just kind of wanted to make, I think, a seamless transition and not necessarily put people in a position where, one person was saying one thing and one person was saying another. Because, the staff are really the ones that are familiar with a lot of this stuff,
Sure.
the ins and outs.
Yeah.
But certainly, yeah, I think we would welcome more, board involvement in that if that's what you would want to do.
I think especially for warrant articles that aren't strictly housekeeping, because I think some of the articles were more housekeeping, like, free cash obviously is something that you're introducing and speaking to, but some of the other warrant articles, I think, I would agree with Rob and Steve and Joe. I think we should take a more active participation in introducing these warrant articles, especially for those that are more complex. And maybe spring town meeting, it'll be a little bit different. There'll be a little bit more on the warrant. I think maybe in the spring we're going to start to see just kind of a sort of us coming out of the COVID. We've had limited warrants for the last couple of years, so I think we will probably evolve out of that. So it would be good to get more engaged in it.
Yeah, I think I would advise just, you take it warrant by warrant or article by article and just see what makes sense for, the article and the town at that point in time, just as a whole.
Yeah, agreed.
Mhm. We good with that? Are we good?
Yeah, good.
Okay. All right, next on our agenda is the BAA grant review and awards. Would I like to turn this over to Rob and Steve jointly to go over their selection?
I defer to the chair of the subcommittee, Steve Mitchell.
Well, thank you.
This was your opportunity to shine, Rob.
Yeah.
So we submitted, Rob and I had our subcommittee meeting, reviewed all of the requests. Let me pull it up. I'm not going to read each of the groups or the awards. I think when we approve this, Susan reaches out to the groups and advises them of what they're receiving. I think we were, as I said, as we reviewed the applications, I think we were generous and appropriate with our support. We did pull one application out of the initial batch only because we wanted some more information, and that is the PTO request for the preschool equipment. And so that's separate, and that one we should discuss as a group. But in terms of the recommendation for the subcommittee, you have that document, and I would ask that we vote to support that as presented.
The other thing I would add, Steve, if you care to, sometimes we kind of have a general guideline that we use $1,000, and there's various, but there are exceptions and there's reasons.
Yeah.
That we make those exceptions, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Rob. I mean, I think there's some areas where we fully supported an application, An example would be, I'll give you two examples. Number one, it's the garden club. The garden club does, many, many activities through the town, and we've historically supported them for their request. The other application example is from the local Boy Scout Troop 232. That troop has been integral to so many projects around town that Rob and I felt that it would be appropriate to fund them for the full request. Other groups, a lot of the nonprofits, we support it partially because nonprofits are involved in fundraising on a regular basis. So, that's kind of our rationale for some of those, kind of differences, why we supported this one fully and this one not.
So Steve, just to clarify, you're saying support the Ashland preschool PTO request at 2,500, the full
No,
2,500?
we didn't get to that yet, Michael.
No.
Oh, okay. I thought
I'm
you said
only
approve it
speaking-
as presented.
No, the summary recommendation as presented. And then we'll speak to the PTO request separately as a group.
Got it.
Are we going to do that tonight, Stephen, or at a later date?
No, we'll do it tonight.
Okay.
It's part of the backup. The application is there as part of the backup. So why don't, I would suggest that we vote on this piece and then move into the PTO application and discuss that one.
Okay. So we all had the opportunity to go over the spreadsheets that have been provided to us. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the allocations as presented by the subcommittee.
I will make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All righty. And all those in favor? Voice vote, please.
Mitchell, I.
Here,
And then I.
Mignani, aye. So that goes 4-0-1.
Just before we move on to the preschool, I just wanted to say, I was counting up the number of organizations that have requested funds through this grant cycle, and it's great to see there was 20 organizations that had requested funds. So I think, and this is the first time we've done an open grant cycle in quite some time. So it's good that we're spreading the runner's account as well as the Selectmen's gift account money to so many groups here in Ashland. So and
Yeah.
thank you, Rob and Steve for going through this, and thank you, Susan, for getting all this organized and keeping it all straight. We appreciate it.
Question
No,
for
we-
Susan. How are we running with runners for next year? Are we getting signups?
We had 24 people that put in, and we drew the names on Monday. I don't have people that have signed any contracts yet, so I don't feel comfortable releasing any names just yet.
Very good. Well, that's great.
So we do have runners that signed up.
wow, that's
Yes,
something.
we-
That's great.
That's
And
good.
24 for 12 spots.
That's
Wow.
Very nice.
2-1. That's awesome.
That's great.
That's very
Thank
good.
you.
Do they know they actually have to go 26.2 miles or whatever?
And do they know the roads in Ashland are kind of?
Rutland.
Well,
They'll
very
be
good.
nice and smooth.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So-
guys.
So the next applications from the PTO, and as we mentioned, we pulled that one only because there was not a sufficient information when they first submitted. And, to me, it looks like all the information that we were looking for is there. They've got samples of some of the things that they would potentially use the money for. And, it looks like certainly good use and purposes for a BAA grant.
Absolutely.
I would
I
agree.
don't disagree.
I'm curious, the only thing that I'm curious about, and I didn't see this in the application, is if they had a specific, they presented us with a few options, but they didn't give us sort of the, I'm looking at a lot of these options and they're significantly less than what they requested. So, I'm curious if they came back with any specifics. They
No.
didn't make a final recommendation of what
They didn't make a recommendation and, so the way I personally look at something like this is they've given us kind of a range of things that they could or would possibly purchase. So, for me, given those conditions, I'd recommend $1,500 for a grant amount. It seems to cover several of the different potentials there. And it is part of the Moms Club, I believe. And I know they're a fundraising organization as well. So, we're funding, we could be fully funding several of those items. That's my thought.
I would agree with that. I would agree that 1,500 would be an appropriate amount.
I don't disagree. And I recently, well, I think this evening, I hope you received an email showing some work that was done by the Moms Club.
Yeah.
And, they did all that volunteer work, on their own time and stuff. So they definitely are out there doing things for the community.
Just to clarify, the Moms Club is very separate from the PTO. So it's
Correct.
completely
Correct.
separate organizations.
Right.
I just
Right.
don't want to confuse the two groups, because
Yeah.
this is, the PTO is what is coming in front of us for funding. So
Yeah, good. Thanks for correcting, Brandy. I don't know, I had the Moms Club on my mind for some reason, but thanks for correcting that.
They
I'm sure
refer
there's
to
a lot of
themselves as
overlap.
moms, yeah.
there's a lot of overlap there, I'm sure.
Okay.
Now, have they gone and solicited other organizations within the town to seek donations as well?
Joe, I know they've done fundraising activities.
Okay. All right, so this is just in addition to request. Okay. All right. Well,
I'll make a motion for 1,500 for the Ashland preschool PTO. That basically.
okay,
Second,
all right, voice vote,
Mitchell, I.
Chair, I.
Kinsman, I.
Lignani, aye. That'd be 401. Congratulations, PTO, and good luck. Those pieces of equipment will definitely be beneficial and used for sure. Rob, you can't go on them. Just want you.
All right, I'll stay off them.
All right. I know I have to stay up and there's a weight limit.
Same here.
I was trying to be nice. Nobody stopped. All right, under old business, we'll go to letter C. This is that wonderful time of year again when we do our annual license and renewals for all alcoholic beverage restaurants, all alcoholic retail, wine and malt restaurant, wine and malt retail, amusement, class 2, class 3, clubs, amusement, billboards, common peculiar entertainment license, Sunday entertainment license, hobby, lodging, and taxi livery service. Can't stay wish this year. All right. So how do we go about doing this? Do I have to read all of these names and businesses and what they're looking for?
Could we share the screen? Could we do it as a screen share and then?
That would be great if we could share the screen and everybody can read it as we
But
As we go.
Susan made a nice suggested motion for us. And so we can approve each of the categories as presented,
presented, right?
right? And then just do it. And so it really, you don't have to read each and every one. It's just as presented on the chart.
Okay. So we can do that. So the motion. Are we going to share the screen to do this, or do we just read it off?
Well, I would suggest we just read it off. The sheet is quite
Okay.
long, so it won't fit on just one screen.
This is true.
It'll be
This
part
is-
of backup. I mean, I think folks, if they're interested, could always look it up.
Okay,
It was also posted as the agenda, so if someone looks at the agenda, it's there.
right. It's on there. Correct. Thank you. All righty. All right. So the first suggested motion is a motion to approve the all alcohol restaurant renewals as presented. Is there a second?
Second,
Voice vote, please.
Mitchell, I.
Here I,
Kinsman, I.
Vignani, aye. And that'd be 4-0-1. There is a motion. Do I hear a motion to approve the all alcohol retail renewals as presented?
So moved.
Second,
And there's a second by Brandy. Voice vote, please.
Mitchell, I.
here I,
Kinsman, I.
Vignani, aye. That's 4-0-1. There is a motion to approve the wine and malt restaurant renewals as presented.
So moved.
Second,
Voice vote.
Mitchell, I.
here I,
Kinsman, I.
And Vignani, aye. 4-0-1. Suggested motion is to approve the wine and malt retail renewals as presented.
So moved.
Second,
Voice vote, please.
Mitchell, I.
here I,
Kinsman, I.
Vignani, aye. 4-0-1. A motion to approve amusement license renewals as presented.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
Mitchell, I.
here I,
Kinsman, I.
Vignani, aye. 4-0-1. A motion to approve the Class 2 license renewals as presented.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
Mitchell, I.
here I,
Kinsman, I.
Vignani, aye. That's 4-0-1. For those who are listening, why I asked nobody votes against it is because so far there's only four of us. And if you vote them all to approve, then we don't need to ask for the no's. Motion to approve Class 3 licenses renewal as presented.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
Mitchell, I.
here I,
Kinsman, I.
Vignani, aye. 4-0-1. Motion to approve the Billiards license renewals as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank
Sorry.
you.
Second.
That's okay. Voice vote,
Oh.
Mitchell, I.
here I.
Kinsman, I.
please. Vignani, aye. That's 4-0-1.
Yeah,
Motion
wait.
to,
Uh,
I
Mr.
think we
Chair, I
skipped
think
the
you might
club.
have missed club license.
did I miss club license? You're right, I did. I skipped right over. My bad. Motion to approve club license renewals as presented.
So moved.
Second,
Voice vote, please.
Mitchell, I.
Here I,
Kinsman, I.
Vignani, aye. That's 4-0-1. Okay, motion to approve the common victicular license renewals as presented.
So moved.
Second,
Voice vote.
Mitchell, I.
here I,
Kinsman, I.
Vignani, aye. Motion to approve entertainment license renewals as presented.
So moved.
Second,
Voice vote.
Mitchell, I.
here I,
Kinsman, I.
Vignani, aye. Motion to approve the Sunday entertainment license renewal as presented.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor, voice vote, please.
Mitchell, I.
here I,
Kinsman, I.
Vignani, aye. Motion to approve the lodging license renewal as presented.
So moved.
Second,
Voice vote.
Mitchell, I.
here I,
Kinsman, I.
Vignani, aye. Motion to approve taxi livery service, Aaron missed one. License to renewal as presented.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
Mitchell,
Voice vote.
I.
Kinsman, I.
Vignani, aye. Now I missed one, which was a motion to approve hobby license renewal.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
Mitchell, I.
here I,
Kinsman, I.
Vignani, aye. And I believe that is it.
Thank you,
Congratulations.
Susan.
Yes, thank you. Made that a lot easier, Susan. Let me
Nice
skip
way
down.
of
that's
presenting.
great.
Very nicely done. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, we're moving on, still on to old new business. Update on the proposed private development at 1050 Main Street.
Okay. As Mark mentioned at the start of the meeting, we
Mhm.
were supposed to have a meeting with the owner and the development team of 10 to 50 Main Street, Ashland Mills. But unfortunately, a couple members of our working group couldn't make it, so we had to postpone that meeting. So I don't have a presentation to give you or provide as part of your backup. I do think it's an okay time to mention the fact that after feedback from the last meeting with the working group, the owner has revised his proposal and his proposed plan in order to make it conform with the zoning that's currently in place. And mainly that consists of reducing the height of the buildings and eliminating 1 story. And so he, just for informational purposes, this has nothing to do with whether it's by right or not, but he is planning on keeping the 2 original granite buildings and renovating those. But what that means by conforming to the zoning is that he would be submitting an application to the planning board for site plan review. That means that there would not be a town meeting vote associated with this. It would not be a special permit. It would be site plan review, which is pretty standard. But that's the way it's supposed to work. Community is supposed to come up with zoning that it feels is characteristic of the town or represents the town best. And if there are exceptions to that are being proposed, there's a special permit process, and that in and of itself has its own criteria, or you could even go for a zoning change. But if a proposal meets what the zoning is, so supposedly that means that the town is okay with what's being proposed, and that's why the process is a site plan review process. So just an update on that. I know there has been some chatter out there about this project. I haven't heard much recently, but I think, to sum it up, the 2 original granite buildings are going to be saved and restored, and the rest of the developments being reconfigured to conform with the current zoning.
Michael, when we started the 1050 course Main working group with Yolanda and I and some members of the planning board, it was in preparation for, having a series of public forums in this whole 40R process, which is really a quite distinctively different process where he has to get a majority vote at town meeting. So that's all off now. So I think, one of the things to think about is, what's the continued purpose of the working group? And I think you're planning on having one final meeting this Monday with the developer. So I think it's worth talking about what, in light of these changed circumstances, what are the purpose of this meeting? And, I wouldn't want it to be interpreted that we're all, by going to this meeting, recommending or endorsing the final plan or what he's going to come up with. It is going to be a public meeting. So on Zoom. So anybody who hears about it and was aware of it and concerned can certainly sit in. But I think it's worth discussing what we're hoping to do with this final meeting and how that fits in with the changed parameters of what's going on now.
Well, Rob, the working group at our last meeting, we asked the owner and the development team to make some specific changes, and we gave some specific suggestions. And we haven't really had an opportunity to see that, those suggestions incorporated into an actual design. I just know what the plans are in terms of making it conform to the existing zoning, but we also had some very specific requests that we wanted the development team to consider and incorporate. And I think it's important to close that loop and have them come back to the board or the working group, and the working group can say, oh yes, this is what we were thinking of, or no, this isn't what we meant here. And I think it's important from a process standpoint to just close that loop. Obviously, when an application is submitted for site plan review, there's a hearing process associated with it, a public process in front of the planning board, and people will have an opportunity to discuss not just the design of the project then, but concerns about traffic and other concerns as well, because site plan review is an opportunity to mitigate some of those or to condition an approval with mitigations in place.
Yeah, I think we just should be clear that the process is really different now, and this committee really essentially is going to have a different role. Really, we're now just kind of much even more informal. Shouldn't take the place of whatever public, process still needs to occur for this regular zoning. Yep. I did have one question, excuse me, Steve. Under this process, they're still going to have to do a traffic study. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. They're still going to have to do traffic analysis and infrastructure analysis. And really, I think what the planning board deems is necessary to, figure out what the impacts are, the actual impacts.
So my impression was that the working group's mission was more design oriented than it was certainly permitting oriented, in the sense I didn't think it was replacing the process of the planning board or that special permit. So that was my impression. So I would think there'd still be some value to the subcommittee, at least continuing to work until you're satisfied with it. The second question I have is related, not directly related to this project, but related to the RTD, not the RTD, but related to the DHCD guidance for MBTA communities, of which we are one, and the requirements that are going to be developed. I understand they're going to be available some point in soon. And how does that impact Ashland as a one of these communities in terms of providing that kind of high density area? I know you and I have talked about this before, Michael, and your thoughts are that the RTD fits those qualifications already. Have we confirm that?
I do. Actually, I was going to bring this up at town manager reports because I did get a chance to look at the guidelines today, and it's extremely confusing. It's not as simple as it was made out to be. I think the RTD is certainly a component of meeting the guidelines or the qualifications of this, but it can't be the only part. There's not enough density there. So I was going to cover not only how the mill building impacts it or potentially could impact it, but just some of the other impacts that I'm seeing through it.
Okay, fair enough.
Go ahead, Brandy.
Michael, so I have two questions. One, when Mr. Gordon was going through his proposal, one of the things that he had emphasized that he was committed to doing 25% affordable housing. So my question is that still the case? Is he still committed to doing that if he's going through site plan review only and not a zoning request?
He has expressed his intention to still do 25% affordable.
Okay.
I'm not, given the shrinkage in the dimensions, I'm not necessarily sure if he's going to be able to do 200 units. I think if he did less, I think we would all be fine with that.
Yep.
But regardless of what the number is, he has committed to doing the 25%. And we would have 34,000 square feet of commercial/retail.
Okay. All right. That's good. And then just from a timing perspective, do you have a sense of when the application will be filed and when this might go through site plan review?
I would say that you'd probably see an application submitted sometime in January. It might be later in January, but I would like to convene the working group and again just tie up some of those loose ends. Rob, I don't know what you think, but I feel like the working group had a significant impact in really making this design change, and I think we can all agree, those of us that have been privy to it and have been on the public meetings and have seen the evolution of this project, think that it's a dramatic improvement over what we saw last year and even, just a couple months ago.
Yeah.
The working group's been effective, I think, in communicating what we would like to see.
Yeah, certainly had some design changes. Yeah. I guess I'm looking forward to see what they'll present.
Yeah,
I
me
think we
too.
all are.
Me too.
One question, Michael, I know Steve had brought it up with respect to density and what DHCD was requiring, and you were going to get into it in your town manager's report. When we looked at it with the Affordable Housing Trust, that project, 1050 Main Street, doesn't fall into the area. It's like 1.25 miles. It's supposed to be 1.5 miles into close to the any train, the train issues. So that was one of the concerns that we were bringing up, that it wasn't close enough to the train station for that to qualify. Now, I don't know if that's changed or not.
Well, I mean, I can go into this whole DHCD thing right now if it's more prudent, I think.
Well,
Michael, remind us what's at stake here with DHCD. What's the point of complying with this?
So just to give some guidelines and some background, excuse me just one second while I pull up my notes. So as part of Governor Baker's legislation, which was signed on January 24th or January 14th of this year, there's a change to 40A, Chapter 40A of the general laws. And it requires that an MBTA community shall have a zoning ordinance or bylaw that provides for at least one district of reasonable size in which multifamily housing is permitted as of right. Provided, however, that such multifamily housing shall be without age restrictions and shall be suitable for families with children. For the purposes of this section, a district of reasonable size shall have a minimum gross density of 15 units per acre and not be located more than 1/2 mile from a commuter rail station, subway station, ferry terminal, or bus station. So what's at stake here, Rob, is if we do not comply with this. So that's the second part of the legislation. If you fail to comply with this section, we would not be eligible for funds from the Housing Choice Initiative, the Local Capital Projects Fund, and then also the MassWorks Infrastructure Program. So we did get guidelines today. This whole reasonable size thing is a lot more, there's a lot more to it than just the density requirement. So they've actually gone through and have determined what each community should have in terms of unit count zoned within that 1/2 mile radius. And for Ashland, that number is 1,124 units. So one important caveat is that it doesn't necessarily mean that those units have to be built. It just, within a 1/2 mile radius, it needs to be zoned by right to allow multifamily housing that tallies up to that 1,124. So the Rail Transit District is obviously a very important part of this. It certainly meets the requirements and guidelines, but it's 400 units. If you look at something like the Mill Building, and let's just say it's 200 units of multifamily housing. Let's just use that number. It is outside of that 1/2 mile radius. You can measure it from different points. So the guidelines say that you can actually measure it from the edge of the MBTA parking lot, to the doorstep, whatever. Even using that criteria, we're just outside of that 1/2 mile radius. However, it says that you can essentially request for a waiver from that 1/2 mile requirement if you can demonstrate that, the zone is within easy access to the train station, which of course the Mill Building certainly is. So that gets us to 600 units out of the 1,124. I've got to dig deeper into this and actually have our planning staff a little deeper into this to see
Okay.
exactly what it means.
So question, Michael, clearly we have some backbone and infrastructure to, provide for some element of these requirements, but take a look at the, let's say, the Southborough train station. Where the hell are they going to put 1,000 units? Or whatever their amount is, where you look where it's located. And I would suggest anywhere in between, let's say, Worcester and Framingham.
Yeah, that's probably
And
true.
look at communities that are all built out essentially, Wellesley and so on. It seems how does this work?
Well, there's land all around it, Steve, in the Southborough station. It just needs to be zoned to multifamily housing. And with that type of density of 15 units per acre, one way to skin this cat for Ashland, and I'm certainly not recommending this, but you have a number of industrial locations right along Pleasant Street. You could zone that to allow, as of right, multifamily housing. And depending on how many units, you could potentially get to that 1,100 number, 1,100.
So you don't have to actually have the units, just have the zoning available.
Correct, Rob. But, I want to be clear, let's just say you did that with the solar farm.
church. The
The church.
Yeah.
It does mean if somebody bought that property, they could, go in and just through site plan review, put up a multifamily complex. So it certainly makes it more attractive to investors and things like that.
Interesting. Well, it is that, trying the transportation node concept and smart growth and all that. The irony of this is 20 years ago, or when these commuter rail stations were being situated, there was very little awareness of our want, and including the MBTA, to put it near any kind of traditional transportation centers. The main thing was the ability to build large parking lots.
Yeah.
And that's, so that's really was in conflict with their current, current aims. This is why we're not downtown, So.
Michael, did they explain how they came up with the Ashland's number? Did they actually analyze the open space or the acreage, or how did they?
No, what they do, Steve, is so they break it down by category. So if you have rapid transit, or if you're adjacent to a station, or if you have a community that has a commuter rail that goes through, they apply a certain percentage to the amount of housing units that you currently have under the 2020 housing census, and use that to get the number that the minimum multifamily district unit capacity requirement. So for Ashland, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe we're on a commuter rail station, so our multiplication factor is 15%. So we have almost 7,500 units of housing according to the census, and I'm hoping my math will come out, and that comes out to 1124, 1125. So it's that 15% number. So it's a very rudimentary calculation. It is a calculation, but it's certainly not individualistic.
It's too bad they didn't do this 15, 20 years ago, because we've got all these condos built kind of in the wrong place. We could have built around
The reason
commuter
they're
rail.
doing, the reason they're doing it now is Governor Baker is trying to increase housing. I think the goal is something like 300,000 units of housing by like 2025 or something along those lines. It might not be quite accurate, but it's that same kind of thought. So the other question I have is, so is there a timeline attached to this? Is there a date that we need to have a plan in place before they, basically not allow us to apply for grants and other funding?
See, I did have that. So they're going to have, so there is a public comment period, and that allows me to announce that. So, and that's going to run from December 15th through, so today, through March 31st, 2022. And then the final guidelines are going to be issued in the summer of 2022.
Do we have the opportunity to kind of comment on this or make?
Yes, we
changes?
do. And actually, what I will do is I will forward the email from Secretary Keneally to all of you at this point, and we'll try to get it out
Yeah.
more publicly. And you'll see if you go down, there's a website link, mass.gov/MBTA communities. And that has the guidelines. It also has the the ways and the opportunities that you can provide public comment.
Michael, what's the acreage that we own in the RTD, and minus the new development, which is age restricted, so you can't count that.
You're talking about the one we purchased, Steve?
Yes.
I think it's about 80 acres. So yeah, I've thought about, that was one thing that came to mind today.
Okay.
We own it.
So
We
80
certainly
times
have
15 is what?
Well, we could certainly, I think we could definitely make a case for that. There's another complicating factor maybe on that parcel, but
Well, and then
that's
there's the whole
certainly-
thing, do we want to use it for housing? Maybe we want to preserve it, so.
well, I think Rob, I think where Steve's going, since you only need to zone, and
Right,
we
yeah.
obviously are not going to sell it.
Yeah, we don't
So-
need to act on it. Apparently, we just need
Well,
to
that's
zone.
it, we just zone
Yeah.
town land as
Right.
part for
Right.
apartments.
But is there a time frame on that, Michael, that, if you have that zoned area specifically for housing, do they give you a time frame where that piece of property needs to be developed before it falls off that timetable?
No, it just, no, it just needs to be, at least in its current form, it just needs to be zoned for that.
Okay,
Well, we do have, it's interesting, we do have land on, Pleasant Street or in private hands that potentially could go into residential developments and be kind of something to look at as, in terms of traffic, but, like the church generates probably a lot of traffic at various times, as well as the businesses,
Yeah.
So it might be relatively smaller impact to zone those. I mean, just thinking out loud here, I mean, those are like the key parcels for using the commuter rail station.
Well, I would like to explore a little bit. We have Ashland Woods, which is multifamily housing. There's a couple conversations that are happening at the planning board with the development on Pond Street and then also on Chestnut Street. I want to see if there's a way we can get credit for those. Especially the one on Pond Street, if that does happen. I mean, that has a direct line to the train station in Framingham. And I think it's one of the things we've always talked about with Pond Street, making that a busier thoroughfare for the MWRTA. And the fact that you have such a large condo community there, and then with multifamily housing, it almost becomes a different type of mixed use district.
Yeah.
But somebody could easily just go to the stop and go right into Framingham to the train station. I think we should be able to get credit for things like that.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a drive though, and beyond most of the,
straight
Yeah.
line.
What about, UGC is going to be age restricted but there's something worth looking at there, I would think, especially in terms of comments.
Yeah, I agree, Rob. I think, we do have 180 units that's going there. It wouldn't qualify under the existing guidelines because it is age restricted, but I think given the totality of the rail transit district and what we're trying to accomplish there, you have denser multifamily housing, a good amount of it. You've got age restricted housing that has an affordable component to it. We'll have the YMCA, and then we have this open space. It's all designed to kind of function together. And with the train station being a big component of that. So, if you remember, I mean, that's one of UGC's big draws, or what they are planning on being a big draw for their development, is access to the train station just down the road.
I think it would be good to be able to comment as a board on this during the comment period, and also encourage individuals to comment as well. I think that to your point, Michael, the UGC development, the state is looking to create housing, and that's what we're doing. So we should get credit wherever we can for doing what the state is basically asking us to do. I know people in Ashland are they don't like to hear this, the idea of more housing coming into our community, but it's, a lot of this is top down coming from the state. So the state is providing incentives for developers to do these types of projects. Wherever we can get credit for things already in process or completed, I think we should definitely do that.
Well, we do have a choice here. We could not participate, but we would be giving up all those opportunities for grants as listed. So, that is an option. I mean, I wouldn't, certainly not advocating that, but, that's the way it's written.
Well,
So meanwhile, Michael, those 80 acres at 15 per, that's 1,200. We got it covered right there.
Yeah, there could be a complicating factor there. I need to explore a bit, but it's something that we should definitely keep our eye on. Brandy, to your point, I think if the board wants to, make a comment as a board, the link I sent, I haven't explored all the different ways you can comment, but I'm sure there's a place that has an opportunity for that to happen.
Yeah,
I think we can do that when everybody gets back. I don't want to do anything until Yolanda says I want to do it as a complete board.
Just so I understand, is the law actually in place and they're doing the regulations now, or what's still under consideration here?
Yeah, so the law is in place, and the law says that DHCD will promulgate guidelines about the program. So we are in that phase right now. So they have issued the draft guidelines today. And again, we'll have a public comment period. And what their hope is to, take those comments, make any changes that they feel is appropriate, and have those final guidelines issued the summer of 2022.
When is the comment period is when to when?
Starts today, and I believe it ends March 22nd.
Okay, so I would suggest, Brandy, I know you're immersed in this, the housing production plan, all of these things. I would suggest, Brandy, at least start drafting something for the board, and then we can review it at our next meeting and go from there.
I am happy to do that.
That makes sense to everybody?
It does.
Sure.
It does. And Brad, I'd be happy to help you with that, especially with the Affordable Housing Trust, because we've actually been doing piggybacking a lot of that work that Michael was talking about, especially with the DHCD when we're talking about 1050 Main. We go over that, but I like that train of thought, Stephen, with respect to that 80 acres. That's that could be the ace in up the sleeve.
Well, I think,
Well,
if there's complicating factors, obviously, we need to manage that. But even if we are, let's say, half the acreage were available, that's half the number right there. So, possibly we could resolve it simply.
Yeah, and if they're looking for affordability too, when it comes back with respect to housing, I mean, UGC is 25% affordable. So, I mean, if they could use that, take some of that percentage to put that towards the 1,100, those figures, that decreases that figure by that amount. So,
yeah, I think we have a variety of things to look at. I think we should try to look at it as if these plots, this land could potentially be developed if we allow that zoning. So I don't know.
Michael, quick question for you. Do we have will your team have enough time to go through and make some recommendations before our next meeting? Because our meeting is the very beginning of January. I think it's the 5th, I want to say. So given the holidays, will you guys have enough time to have sort of a recommendation by then, or do you want to?
No, I think we wouldn't have time by then. I mean, I would say we could probably put something together by February in terms of things that we could highlight in some type of commentary. I wouldn't necessarily, I think we need to start thinking about strategy, but I don't think we want to put too much effort into a strategy yet until the final guidelines are promulgated.
Okay.
We don't necessarily want to strategize with one set of rules and then have those kind of shift a little bit at the end.
Well, what are the final guidelines, Michael?
Summer 2022.
Oh, but okay, but meanwhile, this is our comment period and our opportunity to kind of
Right.
influence that. So we
But-
can't.
Yeah.
wait.
I just wanted to see if, like, if we're putting together a letter from the board, kind of having a sense of where we want to, like, what direction we want to take that in and what we want to include in that letter. I think it would be helpful to have the feedback from the planning department and from you, Michael, as far as like what you recommend before we put together a response.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you like right off the top of my head, one thing that I would advocate for is to be fairly loose in terms of your interpretation of half a mile. And if there's something that's outside of that, give serious consideration to it, especially if it was built with access to the train station in mind. With the mill project, I mean, part of the reason we did the Riverwalk was to provide some type of connectivity there. And then I think also the age restricted piece needs to be looked at. This is explicitly for this legislation is explicitly for families with children, but I don't think we can ignore the fact that the largest growing population in Massachusetts is the older population. They're living longer, they're working longer. And I think providing housing, even if it is age restricted, serves the purpose that I think the governor is trying to.
Yeah.
Or
Or at least a certain percentage is part of the
Exactly.
Don't argue that. I agree with that 100%.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure like we're taking this in a direction that makes sense.
Yeah, we definitely have to dig into the guidelines a little bit more. I'm sure that MAPC and MMA is probably going to have some type of statement and some kind of policy position on this.
Just have to watch out for it, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, one other thing is, the MBTA advisory group, if you think there's a role, I could take that information or get information from the advisory group and the commuter rail community on there about, this is just about commuter rail, right? Or does it include subway stops as well, or bus lines?
If that's classified as rapid transit, yes.
So it's subway and commuter rail, okay.
I believe there are 4 categories. I'll have to look at those.
Yeah, so if you come up with anything you should take to the advisory board, if you think they can be useful, I can do that as well.
Here it is, Rob. It's subway or light rail, bus, commuter rail, and then an MBTA adjacent community. Practically covers all of eastern and central Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
BTA. Adjacent community sounds interesting because it sounds like we qualify for both.
Probably could. Hopefully they don't add the 2 together, Steve.
Hope not.
Yeah. So anyway, like I said, we'll definitely be hearing more about this and be digging into it because it's not as simple.
Yeah, it's an interesting policy thing. We're talking about smart growth and mass transit for years and how to move and how to have housing work with mass transit. This is one of those measures. So.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting dilemma because, we've got, Massachusetts has got a major issue with housing. Yet, it rubs against the, local communities and attempting to maintain a certain character and quality of life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Move on to the next
So we
subject.
good? We good, Michael? Sure. Yep, we'll move on to vote to classify Planning Board and Zoning Board of Appeals as special municipal employees. Read the backup. We've all had an understanding what it is. Are we doing it as just two individual groups? Or are we doing it as just individuals themselves?
No, you have to do it as groups.
As
So
groups,
position,
okay.
essentially. And so
So-
this one would be designating members of the planning board and members of the zoning board of appeals as special municipal employees.
Okay, as the motion is written. Okay, so is there a discussion on that? Does everybody understand why we need to do that?
Michael, do you want to provide a little bit of
Yeah.
like background for people that may be watching?
I can. So there's a pretty detailed explanation about what makes a special municipal employee special and what that exactly means. And I'm going to take the information directly from the website because I can't, put this in a different way. But essentially, it means that the conflict of interest law is less restrictive for people who have a special municipal employee status. Specifically, you may, if you're a special municipal employee, you can represent private parties before municipal boards other than your own. There's certain provisions like you can't have participated in the matter, couldn't have dealt with it as part of your official responsibility. You can also act as what's known as an agent for private parties in a connection with a matter of interest in Ashland, again, provided that you haven't participated in those matters as a municipal official. And then you can actually receive pay or compensation in connection with matters involving Ashland, provided that you have not officially participated in the matters and they're not part of your responsibility. So just to clarify, it does not mean that these people, if they go down this path, do not file a disclosure or, disclose things with ethics. It just means that they are permitted to perform these duties with the proper disclosures.
So what's the reason behind, why do we want to do this?
Well, we have a couple of members on both boards who practice in town, and their practice details, architectural engineering. And for example, if somebody is on the planning board and they're working with a client in Ashland who needs to go before the zoning board of appeals, they can't necessarily take that client on. They can't do that. In this situation, a member of the planning board could do that and could also appear before the zoning board representing his or her client with the proper disclosures. It does not mean that that person would be able to represent their client in front of the planning board. I think that's clear. But again, I think we value experience, and I think we value some of the professional expertise that some of these board members bring. At the same time, they do pay a price, and it limits their ability to take on clients within their town.
So a planning board member couldn't represent someone before the planning board. Is that right?
Regardless of whether or not you vote for the special municipal employee status, a planning board member could not represent somebody before the planning board. They could represent somebody in front of the ZBA.
Michael, my understanding is that this is kind of prevalent in smaller towns where people of expertise with specific expertise are also serving on boards and committees, and that's why this designation was kind of created to begin with, correct?
It was, and Ashland has designated board seats as municipal employees before. Susan, do you happen to have that list in front of you? I know the Ashland Housing, the Affordable Housing Committee, or the Affordable Housing Trust was. The Cable Advisory Committee was. There's a few others. So there has been precedent for this. Are we waiting for Susan to see if she has the list, or
She doesn't have
He's
it.
muted.
you don't have it? Okay. So I believe Susan provided the motion too. So if, if you're okay with this and feel like you've discussed it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Mr.
good.
Chair, you're still muted. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I know. I just waiting to hear if anybody else had any other comments. I was sitting quietly in the weeds, waiting for you guys. Are we good?
We're good.
We're good.
Okay. All right. Well, here's the suggested motion. I move that the select board classify the following position as special municipal employees in accordance with chapter 268A, section 1, paragraph N of the general laws, planning board members and zoning board members.
Second,
Voice vote, please.
Mitchell, I.
Here I.
Kinsman, I.
Magnani, aye. And that vote will be 4-0, 1 absent. Very good. That wasn't difficult. And thank you for the explanation, Michael.
Sure. Absolutely.
All right, next on our agenda is to accept community compact grant for $95,000 for fire equipment.
Okay, so typically we put these in the consent agenda, but this is a pretty decent sized grant. So I just want to announce to the board and everybody that our fire department was successful in securing a community compact IT grant for $95,000 to place an additional communication site for both our fire and police departments communications equipment.
Oh,
So there are a couple of areas that in town that aren't there's still service there, but it's not necessarily as robust, or there's not the redundancy that we would like there. So this allows us to basically fix that.
That's great. Awesome.
It is.
Yeah.
Long overdue to get that area fixed and
Yeah.
be part of the totality of communications and telecommunications. Especially if officers and firefighters need assistance. So the motion would be to accept the community compact grant in the amount of $95,000 for fire equipment.
Second,
All those in favor, voice vote, please.
Mitchell, I.
Here I.
Kinsman, I.
Vignani, aye. And that vote is 4-0, 1 absent. And we'll go down to consent agenda.
Move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor with a voice vote.
Mitchell, I.
Here I.
Kinsman, I.
Vignani, aye. And again, that vote is 4-0, 1 absent.
Mr. Chair, if I can make just one comment. I didn't want to pull anything out of the consent agenda this
Sure.
evening. But I did want to acknowledge, and it makes no difference whether it's on a list or not, but I wanted to acknowledge the Ashland Lions Club and their food drive donation to the food pantry. It wasn't listed on this, but it was a pretty substantial amount of product that was generated and donated to the food pantry. The Lions are listed on this sheet with gift cards that were donated to the pantry as well. But I thought it was important just to acknowledge the Ashland Lions Club for that activity.
Absolutely. They always give back. They always give back to the community, as do many others. So thank you for bringing that up, Steve. Okay. Priority project updates, and I will definitely direct our attention to Town Manager Michael.
Okay, thanks. I really have no update on the rail transit district. In terms of UGC, I will say that UGC showed up at the closing with Mr. Gaynor. Mr. Gaynor did not show. So that is currently in the court system and in legal, I don't want to say limbo, but
Is
hopefully
that
it gets
going to slow,
resolved.
Mike, is that going to slow down the project the start date?
Well, it's already slowed it down. I think the question is how long is it
How
going to?
long? You're right.
So it's unfortunate.
It is.
But I think all of us, we know the parties involved. We're not necessarily surprised with this situation. So moving on to downtown, as you can see, there's still construction going on. They're really trying hard to get all of the infrastructure underground that they can before they button up for the winter, because next year they want to start doing the streetscape work, and also the utilities start installing their equipment. What you will be seeing out here is that they're actually starting to install the foundation for the masts for the traffic signals. Those big black, new black traffic signals. So we're starting to see some visible progress of it going on. I will also let you know that on the good financial news front, we did receive our invoice from Eversource for their equipment, and it was lower than what they had given us for an estimate. So it's always good when things come in lower than what you're expecting in rare.
Yeah. Michael, how about the street lighting? Is that the foundations and the initial work for that? Will we be seeing that as well?
Probably not before the end of the year, Steve. I doubt that. That'll probably happen after they've done the sidewalks and everything. They'll probably stub out, obviously where the poles are going to go.
Right. Okay.
And then install them.
And Michael, they'll be putting new electrical runners in for the new lighting.
Conduit?
Yeah, the new conduit.
Yep, we most certainly are.
Okay.
It ain't
So we
cheap.
don't. Yeah, I bet it isn't. I bet it
PVC
isn't.
is
If it's
not
anything
cheap.
like the public safety conduit, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I will say the town of Weston recently completed their downtown improvement project, which has a very similar scope to ours. They are their town center is much more green oriented in terms of greenery, but they did the same thing in terms of replacing their sidewalks, undergrounding the utilities, making things ADA compliant, putting decorative street lighting. If you have a chance to drive through there, I would encourage you to do it. It's gorgeous. And, fortunately, their contractor is also our contractor. So that's, they're certainly experienced in this. But yeah, I would definitely, if you need a little inspiration, I think after you go over Rutland, which is Main Street and Front Street right now, I'd encourage you to go to Weston and take a look at that. It's really nice.
Hey, Mike, just where you brought up Wayland, how long did that project take for them to complete, start to finish?
It's about 1.5 years, 2 years. Well, from construction start. They've been planning this since 2013, I believe. 2012, 2013.
Same scope of work? Or is
It
theirs
was actually a little bit larger in terms of lineal feet.
Okay.
And they also incorporated a couple of other more, I think, aesthetic elements, but they didn't do nearly the infrastructure work in terms of the sidewalks and the brick banding and things like that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're
Hey,
welcome.
Michael, what's the traffic delays gonna look like as we get into the winter in terms of, how's that? And just a reminder to people what they can do to find out about, potential delays.
Well, I'm hoping not that I'm hoping, but I think it's going to be a necessity that a lot of action stops, construction action stops. So the traffic impact in terms of lane closures and everything should be minimal, if any. I would encourage people to sign up for our construction updates, both for downtown and 126, and get those into your email inbox. I believe we also post them on our social media pages, and those typically come out weekly and give you an idea of what to expect. What I will say, Rob, is that the patches that you'll see, ideally, I would love to put like a temporary patch curb to curb along Main Street. I don't think we're going to be able to do that. So it's going to be a little bit of a bumpy ride for for a little while.
I think the main, I think, issue people would have is if there's lane closures and delays and traffic backing up, but it sounds like you're saying there's going to be less of that as we head into the winter and traffic
There should
will
be, yeah. I mean, just
flow.
pushing the snow out of the way, you need to have, free access to the street and to curbs and all that good stuff.
Yeah, to that point, we would not leave the metal plates in place over the winter, correct?
We will not leave the metal plates over the winter. We will put in a temporary patch. Gosh, I don't know how people who sleep here can stand it. I mean, sometimes just in my office, it gets very loud and redundant. So,
Well, that'll be good news for people.
yes. Moving on to the public safety building and Mendez School. I'll actually start out with Mendez. Of course, we had a very nice groundbreaking ceremony last week. Appreciate everybody who attended. I thought it was really great to have the kids incorporated as part of the program. I think everybody there kind of summarized, what it took to get there and how excited we are about it. Again, I want to thank, the select board, the building committee, the school committee, FinCom, also our state rep, Jack Lewis. I think I inadvertently omitted him from my comments. That certainly wasn't intentional, but certainly also Senate President Spilka and also the MSBA, because they're picking up a big chunk of the tab on this one. So, looking forward, they've already started doing some of the clearing necessary and already started constructing the access point off of Fisk Road. So you're seeing that activity happening right now. And then moving on to the public safety project. I think people can see the progress. It's a very big purple building right now. Purple, very purple. I promise people that's not going to be the final color. But we're making good progress. We recently held a meeting, it was just yesterday, actually, time flies, where we started getting into a little bit more detail of the lobby in the vestibule area and kind of finishing that out and finalizing that. But progress is still happening on that. We also got a cost for the design for solar on the roof as well. So I think that's an important point.
Yeah. We did approve, actually, we approved moving forward with the design and engineering for the system. And then, however, we choose to, whether we go out to bid or include it in the current GC's contract is to be determined at this point.
Question for you guys, just because it was brought to my attention. Is the traffic light at Fountain and 135 in scope for this project? Are you guys going to be doing work on that at that traffic site in general? And then I'll tell you why I'm asking.
So there's a couple of things going on there, Brandy. So you've seen, everybody's probably seen that we've removed the islands and put in new traffic patterns there, a dedicated right turn lane. I believe that intersection, the light there, and then also the one up over the bridge, those are actually owned by the state. And we recently just took them over. So we have the ability to do signal changes. Jen, do you remember if that's actually part of the scope? I think the paving is, but I'm not necessarily sure.
Oh, sorry.
Wow.
I didn't mean to turn my camera off.
I was about to say, I
to
took offense to that.
Ran away.
Yeah, so the work is not in the scope of the public safety building, but we're trying to make sure that we coordinate with DPW on that work.
Okay, because it was brought to my attention that there isn't crosswalks at that light. And I know some of the high schoolers run across 135. So I was curious if there was a way to put crosswalks in there as part of this project, if that was already in scope, and could be added in.
I believe I got the same question, Brandy. It might have been from a different person, but I looked into it. We're not planning on putting crosswalks there right now. That's something that we could certainly look at because you're right. A lot of kids empty out onto that.
Okay, all right, thanks, I appreciate that.
And Michael, just to add additional information, that the traffic study committee was definitely aware of that because we had talked about that at our last meeting as well. And Doug was aware of it. And I know Doug had been in contact with Power, and I don't know if that conversation is still continuing. But I know that where they were going to put the poles, they wanted to put a crosswalk in there as well. So there has been discussion with it, and I don't know where it has gone to or if it's put on the back burner until the project is completed. So, but it is on the radar screen, Brandy, for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Just a related question with the intersection from Union Street to East Union leading up to the high school. Is that being redesigned or reconfigured at all? And are we changing the signalization of that horrible light that says you can't go right on red? Is that being redone?
We're definitely making some changes, Rob. I mean, we're certainly changing the geometry of that intersection a little bit, slightly. I do believe some signalization changes are going to be made just in order so we can ensure that the fire apparatus can get out.
Oh, yeah.
Having,
To take a right on Union Street.
Jen, do you have any more insight on that more than what I've got?
No, I think you covered it. Yeah, the signalization changes are really going to make sure that all the lights down that street are communicating with one another so that we make sure that there's space for the apparatus, and the intersection is changing, but just really slightly.
I still don't. So maybe this is better for Joe, but why is that light going up to the high school not let you go up, take a right when it's red? I don't get that. How that was decided.
Rob, it's that is a great mystery in town. But the question was raised a while ago, and actually we did have people look into that, and it turns out that no, we can't allow a right on red because it essentially is a continuation of Union Street. So instead of bearing a right, it's almost like you're going straight. Or at least that's what the interpretation is.
As a high school kid, late to high school because I gotta wait for that light, I'd be really.
Well, somebody didn't ask the question until about 4 years ago, and I think people took their own interpretation of whether
I used to take a right there.
But somebody did ask the question, and so we had to get the answer.
Oh, well, okay.
People should have just did their own thing.
Right.
Sometimes, not for government purposes, but
Right.
sometimes the best question is the one unasked. So again, not for government.
The squeaky wheel got the oil in that one, and now no one's happy with it.
They got the sign.
They got the sign.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
They got the sign. Okay. Wait on red. What is it? Oh, well, okay. Thanks.
So last on, so the 126 project, so they're going to be buttoning up a lot of their road work going into the winter, but what they do hope to do is continue to work on the retaining walls at the intersection of Elliott and Pond, and then also the one on Spyglass Hill. So they hope to be working on that over the winter. So we pray that they can do that, and I don't know if that will accelerate their schedule a lot, but I think any acceleration is an improvement over what we're looking at. And then finally, the Valentine project, we did start the cabling yesterday. I believe it's going to take 2 or 3 days, but nobody can go inside there yet while it's being done because of concern and liability issues. Apparently, it's a pretty involved effort, but again, the hope is once that is completed, we'll have a secure superstructure for the barn and give us a little time to determine what our future moves are.
Good, very good. Can you provide some photos at our next meeting possibly of what the cabling looks like?
I think we can do that.
Okay.
I mean, I might not be allowed to go in there, but it doesn't mean I won't.
Well, maybe even, Doug, our building commissioner can snap a few photos.
Maybe. He's quite the photographer. So, but anyway, that's, we're excited about that. Do you want to move into town manager reports?
Ready when you are,
Here?
sir.
Okay, so we did, I did go into the housing guidelines and those new DHCD guidelines regarding communities that are near transit stations. Cover that pretty well. I don't know if everybody saw, but our tax rate recap sheet was submitted and our tax rate was approved at what we had projected. So we're excited. Well, I don't know. We're not excited. We're relieved that we got it done at this point because we have to turn it around and actually put out the tax bills pretty soon, the third quarter tax bills. So that's been great. Just a reminder, we do have a planning board opening. Joe Rubertone has resigned. So just to give a brief overview on the process, once that notification has happened, to the town clerk. The select board obviously has been notified. We put it out for basically a call for applications. And this will be a joint appointment between the select board and the remaining members of the planning board. And I'm hoping that we can do that at a joint meeting in early January.
Okay.
Because we would like to have people in place for January 13th. And we are looking to appoint both a full member and then an associate member as well. And we've had a few talent bank forms submitted already.
Now, Michael, the planning board seat, this is filling Joe's remainder of his term, which expires in May anyway, correct?
Correct.
So whoever would want to fill that position would hopefully want to run for a full term in the upcoming spring election.
That's a good point. A full 5-year term.
Like a life sentence.
Yes,
like-
it's quite the term.
Like
Hey, I just had a question, and Susan briefed me a bit on this, but are we required to make this appointment, or are we choosing to do it because the planning board has requested that we fill it? I'm just trying to remember from the charter that we don't always need to fill these, and some people could say that, why don't you wait a few months for the election and let someone run for planning board? So we kind of, where are we with that?
Doesn't the charter define that though, Rob?
Yeah,
Within-
well, that's what I'm asking. I guess I didn't look at the charter, but I
And
thought
it's
there was
within the
some.
time frame.
So
And it's
Rob,
within
also,
that time frame.
so Rob, also, the planning board has a big project in front of them in January, which is what Michael alluded to. One of the
Yeah.
members of the current planning board needs to recuse herself from that.
That
hearing.
troublemaker, Anna. Yes, I
Well,
am. I understand.
She's a direct abutter, so
Yeah.
she won't be participating. And because it's a special permit, I believe, application, they require 4 votes.
Oh, they do.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
They need a full board to be able to do the hearing.
All right. Well, that seems reasonable.
But I'd be
Yes.
curious to know if it does fall within that time frame of
Yeah.
the need to appoint because of the closest to the election date.
I don't recall. I vaguely recall that, Steve. I don't remember
should-
looking at that when I was looking through the process.
Yeah, we should probably
Yeah.
double check
Yes.
that we
Yeah,
we
it's-
actually have the ability to do it this close to an election.
We don't have to, we don't have to dig into this tonight. We
Yeah.
can look at it
Yeah.
because clearly, the incentive is to appoint somebody for the purposes of.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I have a huge project going on, so
Yeah.
a potential huge project going on. With those.
So I'll move on to ARPA and state ARPA funds. The state, the legislature has passed a bill directing where I think it's over $3 billion in supplemental funding and then ARPA funding directing it to different agencies and different municipalities. I believe the governor vetoed a couple sections, but my understanding is that those were overridden. And so today we got word of what Ashland is going to receive through this bill. First is $500,000 to hopefully complete the Riverwalk section, that connection or that crossing, I should say, from the north end of this or north side of the Sudbury over to the south side. So certainly happy about that. And then $750,000 is going towards the reconstruction of the Warren Barn. So I think everybody knows that that Warren district is certainly of interest to Senate President Spilka. You know, she's already done a lot of work in, you know, keeping that preserved the way it is. And so she went a little bit farther this time even and got us some money to reconstruct the barn. So many thanks to her and her advocacy, as well as Representative Lewis. You know, these are not insignificant sums, and I think we're certainly appreciative, and you know, I think we should all make a point to reach out to Karen and let her know how much we appreciate what she's done for us in this. So
Don't disagree. Right?
The Warren Barn especially, you know, that's huge. There was also money in there for FSU in the Warren Conference Center, and that's $500,000 for water and sewer infrastructure upgrades. So that leads me into my next item that I wanted to talk about is.
Can I just, before you go there, Michael, just does that funding, like say for the Warren Barn and the Riverwalk, change our current plans? I mean, if we're getting because we got these funds, we'll have other funds available, or how much of this was additional?
I think the Riverwalk, we still need to do a little more engineering to see exactly what the cost is and see if there's, you know, savings potential through this. The Warren Barn yes, it will save us money. The thing is the money that it was going to save us is restricted funds used for the Warren district.
Oh, right.
We still might need to use those, quite frankly. I'm not, you know, the bid that we got, low bid, and this was a while ago, I think was over $800,000. So Framingham State is also committed to put some money into that as well, because that lines up with their plans, which I'll talk about next. I think everybody's aware that the university was looking at doing this university club concept in the spring next year, I should say. They were also interested in having proposals from different management companies and different entities in terms of managing that aspect and managing the conference center in and of itself. So initially they had invited me to be a part of the interviews with the different proposals. Ultimately their council said that wasn't allowed. So I am meeting with Dale and Javier and Dennis Giambetti from Senate President Spilka's office tomorrow to see what they have. I believe they have a proposal from Flick/Compass Group. So I'll be sure to let you know what I find out about that. I know they're looking at making some heavy investments into that property, some heavy investments. So it could be
What's
a very
your feeling,
positive.
Michael, about, I'm sorry to interrupt, but what's your feeling about what they have in mind? I mean, we talk about additional buildings or changes to buildings, or?
I don't have a full picture yet, Rob, but from what I've gathered is just through some conversations, is that they're looking at not necessarily putting up new buildings. They might add to an existing building, but then they're also looking at renovating the existing facilities. Like, I mean, not just a facelift, like a real renovation. I think one of the things that I'm concerned with is how does this affect basically that bucolic area of the property, that open field. And I wouldn't like to see that, destroyed is a pretty dramatic
Yeah,
word,
right.
but
Yeah,
we worked hard collectively, and not just the town, but Karen and FSU to preserve that. And so I'd hate to see that go away.
I would think, Michael, that part of it is renovating the whole path down to the beach area that they have access to. I mean, we've walked down there and, it's in need of major
that's true.
work. Right, but, and I'm sure that's part of it. I think with the University Club concept, that's a big piece of that waterfront.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a big component, like the little private beach area. I
Yeah.
believe. So,
That's interesting. The other thing, and my question is a little more prosaic. They cut off the parking lot to the tennis court last year or a year before. Are they ever thinking about opening it back up again and, letting people use those areas again? Get a feeling from Dale on that, or Javier?
I don't have one yet, Rob. I don't.
I know they were concerned about the dog walkers and all that, but I don't know. How long are they going to keep everything closed off? I guess that would be my question.
Yeah, it's something I can certainly ask them tomorrow.
And also just those soccer fields that are used by Ashland Youth Soccer, that's considered Framingham State property as well, right?
Yeah, that is. Oh, they're still the soccer's still there, right? Or not?
They still use those fields.
Yeah, and the cricket.
The cricket people are there. I've seen them, but
Excuse me.
I don't know if Dale is still concerned. He had all these concerns last year about usage, I guess.
Yeah, I would just say, Michael, if you get a sense from Framingham State that they're looking to change the usage of those fields, that you let Ashland Youth Soccer know as early as possible, because they use that for quite a bit of scheduling, for spring and fall.
Definitely do that.
Hopefully they're not doing that.
Hopefully they'll still be good neighbors and allow the town
But
to.
yeah, I will ask. I will ask how what they're thinking of doing could potentially impact things like youth soccer, the cricket program. I know, the regional cricket program. depends
Rob's
on
use
that
of the
field.
tennis courts, that kind of thing.
I
Yeah.
want to play tennis over there.
Yeah, it's
about
nice. It's a
pickleball?
nice spot.
It is a nice spot.
Okay, moving on. Let's see. Talk about COVID clinics. We had the second dose clinic at the high school the same night that we had town meeting. I believe we had administered 600 doses the first time, and I think we administered 580 for the second dose. And I think the 20 that couldn't make it, they were in some level of quarantine or not. So certainly successful. Thanks to Ed and everybody else who volunteered to help make that happen. That was a joint project with Holliston. And then tonight we're actually running a COVID clinic for younger residents, but it's up in Northborough. So it's part of our collaboration with that. So they were doing that tonight. So again, trying to get people vaccinated quickly and efficiently, and try to get our percentage numbers up. So I'm very, very happy about that.
And he's got a booster clinic too, right?
Yeah, there's actually been a number of boosters.
I believe he's having one tomorrow.
Yeah. I know certainly public safety has gotten their boosters. I will tell you, I don't want to scare anybody off. The booster seems to have a pretty good effect on people. I don't know what it is, but it's the same thing. It takes you a day when you hit hard for a day. But gosh, I hope I didn't just scare people.
We're good. We're hardy people.
Right. We're New Englanders. We're up to this.
I did want to let folks know, I told this to Michael the other day, but the testing over at the MBTA site has increased dramatically. I was coming in to work on Monday morning at the train station, and literally as I'm coming off of Memorial Drive into the train station, the traffic was backed up all the way to basically the entrance of the train station. So, which is, so people are really utilizing the testing site. So, which is a good thing. So,
Yeah.
but
Well, it's good. I went over today to get tested, and I just, no particular reason other than I try to go every few weeks, and I think I was the third car in line, just drove in. And
It really varies.
so it depends. It was around 10 in the morning. They're only open till 11 on, I think, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, whatever their schedule is. So, recommended. It's very easy. Typically you get your results the next morning, and just part of our protocols these days.
Yeah, it's been a lifesaver for certain and convenient. And then finally, I just want to talk about some of our holiday programs. It's
Hey, Michael, I'm sorry to interrupt, but before we leave COVID, I'm wondering with the Omicron and what's going on, is the Board of Health, or are you or us reviewing our current procedures and our current guidelines? I know some towns have tightened procedures beyond what the state is currently requiring in terms of mask usage. Are we looking at that or thinking about it, or what's our kind of thinking on that?
so we've
Because I know
still,
with we kind of loosened things up, which was fine, but now we've got kind of another change, and I'm just wondering if we're gonna, what we're thinking about that. I mean, I have some concerns when I see the restaurants, no one's wearing masks anymore, including servers. So it's something to think about. I was just wondering if we're thinking about that.
well, we still, require members of the public to wear masks, and all of us in the common areas, we're masked. So I don't necessarily see anything changing from that standpoint. I will say, just looking at the numbers, I think, as much as I hate to say it, the return to in-person meetings might be delayed, or probably will be
Our town meetings,
delayed. Yeah. And I say that as a person, I'm certainly comfortable with being in places that aren't necessarily masked, but not everybody is. And, I think we just have to be, we have our own personal comfort level, but then we're also thinking about a broader group of people as well.
Well, that's what I mean. If there's certain requirements we should be considering, I guess that's what I'm asking, and if other people are feeling that as well. I know in some towns, they just basically tightened up, how things are being run and considering it. We're, I think, just going with the current state guidelines. So that may be okay with people, but it's something we should be, I think, monitoring and thinking about. And is the Board of Health considering and reviewing our requirements, or is that on us to think about? Or
well, I think it's certainly on their radar, Rob, this variant. I'm not necessarily sure. I can certainly check in about what, if any action they're thinking about taking in regards to this. Jen, do you have any insight on that? You might, because you talked to Raj.
Yeah, so I certainly know that both Raj and Ed Berman are looking at the statistics and sort of reviewing guidelines and, guiding people who are calling for, business owners or what have you, or community members that are calling. Our COVID hotline is very busy. And so also Susan and Diane field lots of calls and provide some guidance. But I do know at the Board of Health meeting, they're getting updates from Ed and having those conversations, but I don't know if they're specifically thinking about tightening anything up. I think at this point, we've been following the state guidance.
So Rob, I think I've been pretty consistent with trying to advocate for getting back to live meetings, but the reality is right now that we don't know what's going on with the Omicron variants. I mean, everything seems to be right now, the spurts are all connected to Delta. And so I guess, I've reevaluated at this point, and I think it's more important that we, stay on remote meetings at this point until we have more information. And, let's see what happens during the winter time into the spring at this point.
I would also say just the high school was supposed to remove their mask mandate this past Monday. It had been a planned, this was communicated out to parents, and they had to sign basically a certification that their child was vaccinated and that they will allow them to be unmasked if they choose to do so. And the school made a decision last Friday to roll that back. So, I think everyone's looking at it, from different perspectives. But yeah, I agree. It's the timing is not good to go back to in-person meetings, and we need to kind of wait to see what this Omicron means and what the next couple of months.
Yeah.
may look
Well, the
like.
numbers they're spiking everywhere. I thought I read today that there might be some cancellations of NFL games this weekend.
Yeah, it's certainly spiking. And I think it's something, the one thing that I've heard about the Omicron is that it's more easily transmissible, but not necessarily as harsh. And certainly if you're vaccinated, the effects, even if you do contract it, are much less severe. That seems to be the standard. But it's certainly something that I think we'll need to keep our eye on.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Okay, and then,
You were going into holiday programs.
yeah, you don't know anything about those, do you, Joe?
No.
So, no. I was telling our staff earlier today, it's great to get back to some of these holiday programs that we've done. Some of them have been longstanding traditions that have adapted based on COVID. Some of them are relatively new, but one of those that we've had to adapt with COVID, which seems to be very, very popular, is the tree lighting in the square, and then having Santa ride all throughout town and give everybody an opportunity to see him as he goes by in his sleigh. So I've heard we've had a couple people with some criticisms, but I mean, the large majority of people have just been very enthusiastic about that. So many thanks to the fire department and Santa, Jeff Bell and Marley, and Beth Reynolds, who helped put all of this together, some of the decorations. It's really great. We also had Illuminate Ashland this past weekend, despite the weather. It was pretty, Steve, I think we were selling Christmas trees that afternoon.
We were, yes. And
Yeah.
did we get a little wet? I think we got a little wet.
It was really rainy, and then it became warm, almost like a warm front. You could feel a warm
Yes.
breeze.
Yeah, interesting weather.
It was certainly great. I personally got to stop by a couple places. Went to the library where they had some dancers. It was just a great event. So many thanks to Beth and Chrissy Reynolds, and I believe Arts Ashland is part of this as well.
Not really, but we have supported it in the past, but we really had limited activities this year.
We also were able to have our menorah lighting. I don't think we've met since we had that. Again, many thanks to Jeff Bell and Roy Correa and Joe LaCroix for getting that thing working with, I think, minutes to spare. It was a true Hanukkah miracle. Today, as part of our family holiday program, we distributed, food and gifts to 106 families. So that's always incredible, always a great thing. I really have to give a shout out to our community center staff. And just they pulled together as a team to put this one on. And I think, I want to give some special thanks to Candy Wilson and Kelly Rund and Joanne Duffy. Everybody played a role, but I really would like to highlight them. It just really came together well, and due solely to their efforts, our community center staff efforts. So many thanks to them. And finally, not necessarily a holiday event, but I hope I know many of you got to view some of the auction items at the library. Mina Jane, our library director, as well as the trustees and the friends, I think, participated in putting an auction on of different children's illustrators' work. There were prints and books. I was fortunate. I was a lucky bidder for 2 items that I'm really happy about. One of them is actually our own children's librarian's work, Lois McAuliffe. She's done a couple of books already, so
Yeah.
have some artwork in a book from there. And then I have a nice Todd Parr print, and I read a couple of Todd Parr books to Nora as she was growing up, so it's got some special memories. But just special thanks to everybody who put that on as well. And aside from that, this is our last meeting. Well, it should be our last meeting of 2021, and just want to wish everybody a happy holiday and looking forward to the new year.
Thank you, Michael. Very good. Are you ready for board reports?
I'm ready. The question is, are you ready?
I think we're all ready.
Okay.
I'm not sure if Brandy's ready. I don't know if she's still eating chili, or are we good?
Oh, I'm good.
You're good. All right.
I'm
Brandy,
good.
how about you go first?
Okay, I can go first. So a couple of things. One, Michael was talking about the holiday stuff. The one thing that Michael didn't talk about was the holiday stroll, which was new this year. Oh,
Yeah.
But I just wanted to give a shout out to Beth and Ashley for putting that together. It was such a great day, watching everyone kind of literally go from place to place, supporting our local businesses. And the word on the street was that all of our businesses did really well that day and really appreciated it. And then, obviously we all walked down to see the tree lighting and Santa, and thanks to Santa as well for the hours in the sleigh that he flew around. Michael was talking about people giving feedback on Santa. I got a lot of personal feedback on Santa. So I think Santa's going to be possibly like an annual event. So buckle up, Santa. The other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was this afternoon we had a meeting with MAPC to talk about the inclusionary zoning bylaw. We had a public forum. God, what month are we in? I think it was in November. I'm losing track of my time, but we basically did a debrief of the public forum. And we're going to be doing there's going to be a survey that's going to be coming out in January, kind of talking about the different options that we have that we're going to look at, affordability amounts, at different AMIs and offsets that we would be willing to offer to compensate for those offsets. So we're going to be floating that out to the public. That's going to be out probably in early January, and we're going to have that survey available for about a month. One of the pieces of feedback that we gave back to MAPC was that public forum, which I know many of you were at. While there was polling and some chat in the Zoom, there wasn't, this ability to really ask questions and give some real feedback. So this survey is going to allow people to be able to do that. So that'll be a good thing. And then the plan is for our committee to reconvene in February and come up with a decision as to how we want to proceed with the inclusionary zoning bylaw, and then prepare that. We present it to you, we'll present it to the planning board, and basically prepare for Springtown meeting. So that is the goal on that. And then the only other thing I have, so as has been my my tradition in recent years, I was asked about this the other day, and I'm like, I'm definitely doing it. Every year about this time, I like to look back on the year and put it to poem, because why not? Because that's what I've done. So I'm going to present to you our Ode to Ashland 2021. Okay.
Sorry, I'm just anticipatory laughing.
2021 was a challenging year. COVID was still very present. Our health we feared. But now we knew what we needed to do, still Zooming for meetings, masks, and social distancing too. Lots of vaccine clinics, the COVID task force worked hard with comfort dogs, Captain America, and the whole 9 yards. January town meeting had 1,000 folks throughout the day, voting for Minda's and the PSB in a safe and very unique way. Construction became the norm around town. Work began on 126 downtown. The public safety building took form. The new Minda's school excitingly broke ground after the status of the tree was finally found. Work continues on the Valentine estate and a housing production plan we did create. Home prices continue to soar, trying to include affordable housing for many more. Supporting the great work that area has done, knowing our community work on racial equity has only begun. News on WACA and around the clock is where we all looked. And please don't believe everything you read on Facebook.
Here, here.
Schools went back in person, events again at Corner Spot, kept supporting our local businesses. We love them a lot. The Ashland Farmers Market celebrated 10 great years. We opened the Trolley Brook. The Upper Charles Trail is now here. Ashland welcomed marathon runners again in October this year. We're proud of those who raised funds for local programs we hold dear. We lit the menorah and the Christmas tree, Illuminate, and a new holiday stroll that we love to see. Santa again took to the streets, flying around on his sleigh, led by our first responders. They knew the way. This next year, so much more to do, using ARPA funds, more sidewalks, dog park, and YMCA too. 10 to 50 Main Street and a park of Cadillac paint, a permanent police chief for the APD, which is great. We will start to see some of our projects complete. Downtown will be beautiful. Our first responders will move to Union Street. So as we look forward to the hard work ahead to get through, a huge thanks to my fellow board, all our volunteers and town staff for all that you do. Not everyone appreciates what it takes to keep a town moving forward and making decisions with high stakes. As my first term approaches its end and I take a look back, so much I've learned, challenges we didn't lack. I still truly love the work that we do, making an impact on Ashland with a heart that is true. I've met so many wonderful people, and what I've observed, Ashland truly is a special community to serve. Fingers crossed this next year we see COVID come to an end, because our best years in Ashland are still ahead. I wish you the happiest of holidays and a happy new year with good health, family, friends, and lots of cheer. That is it.
Oh,
Nicely done.
Thanks, Brandy.
Nothing like putting the year to a poem.
there you go.
It's becoming tradition.
It
It
is.
is.
Awesome.
Well
Yeah,
There's a
done.
lot there. There's a lot to
Very nicely
remember.
said.
Jeez.
Yes.
It's a
Very
good way to
nicely done,
remember.
Brad.
It's a good way to remember all the good stuff that we do.
Yeah.
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 Thank you for putting that down on pen. Very nicely done. Well, you know, I thought we were going to get out of having to hear anything about the Upper Charles Trail, but that poem brought a
Brought it
tear to
in,
my
yes.
eye. It brought a tear to my eye. So with respect to that, Rob,
Deal.
All right. I don't know. Why do I always have to follow Brandy after her long poem? Her wonderful poem too. But yeah.
you
All
don't
right,
have
I just have one item. I'm going to be named chair of the MBTA Advisory Board Commuter Rail Subcommittee. So, so that may be, a good vehicle to kind of try to address or talk about commuter rail issues such as we talked about tonight. So I wanted to let people know that.
That's good.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's awesome, Rob.
Yeah, I think, Brian just kind of likes me and I don't know, I show up for meetings, but
The battle showing up.
especially if they're,
Right.
especially when they're virtual meetings, that's great. But anyway, and yeah, the only other thing I had was, wish everyone happy holidays and a happy new year. And it's as yet another year, as a year comes to a close, it's really has been a quite unique year in many ways. And hopefully, we'll get past COVID and, be able to successfully deal with some of the challenges lying ahead. not just locally, but nationally, I think is a lot going on. That's in some ways dwarfs some of the stuff we're doing here in terms of the future of American democracy, I think. But anyway, but this isn't the time to talk about that. So Happy New Year all and happy holidays. It's been great
Thank you.
serving with
You and
you.
yours.
Thank you, Rob.
Yes, Rob. Thank you. All right, Steve, you're up, handsome.
All right, thank you, Joe. So just a couple things. I was reviewing the latest edition of the Beacon, which is the MMA publication, and a couple of interesting things. First of all, there's an ad in the Beacon for a sustainability program manager for the town of Ashland. And so quick update, are we getting applications in? Quick status, what's the time frame?
Can't really say it's time frame yet, but we have had some applications in, and I think we're putting together interviews.
Okay, very good. And there was another interesting ad, and I know this is something that you've brought up in the past, Michael, about project manager. And actually the town of Dover has an ad in there for a project manager who reports to the municipal project manager. So I guess there's multiple layers of that. And I don't, it just, struck my eye because it's something that we have talked about. Don't know if it's something that, given the volume of projects that we are engaged in, and it seems like when we're finished with this, we're going to be moving on to something else. And, have you given more thought to that, the concept of either whether it's a new hire or whether it's blending into an existing position?
Yeah, we certainly have, and it ties in, I think, to the discussion that we had a few Saturdays ago now in regards to just staffing in general. And I do think, if we do increase staffing, that type of role, whether it's, like you said, a separate position or another responsibility added to an existing position, would certainly be the primary thing moving forward. I agree with you that we probably will not stop doing things after this flurry of activity happens, but it's just not a normal or sustainable pace. So I do think we'll probably ramp it down a little bit.
Yeah.
I always threaten that we'll be done at the end. Jen assures me that that's not my style. So
well, the fact is we're getting ARPA funds that need to be used by a certain date. Now, yes, the date is advanced, but they still need to be done. So, the fact is we're going to finish one project and we are going to move on to something else. So
that is true.
Yeah. So last thing from the Beacon has to do with the Attorney General is reminding the cities and towns that they are eligible to sign on to an agreement that will fund work to address the opioid crisis. Now, I don't know if we've done that. If we haven't, should we? I don't know. At this point, we really haven't had an update from the police department or the Board of Health regarding, how the opioid crisis is impacting Ashland. But is this something that we should be looking at? There are funds that will be distributed to towns that apply or sign into this program.
Yeah, Steve, collectively, the board and myself, we actually submitted, I guess, a statement of interest or
okay,
however you do it. But a few years ago, we did that. And so this is just now rolling out.
Okay.
Everything. So I believe there is some documentation that probably should be coming out soon with regards to that.
Yeah, I didn't recall whether we had signed on to this program. So, certainly glad that we did. And, at some point, I'd like to, suggest that, that we do get, in which we've had in the past, an update from both the police and fire chiefs about the, just the type of calls and activities that they're seeing out in our community. So, but that's for a future time. So, and last thing, Joe, I just want to wish everybody a healthy and happy holidays, best wishes. Just want to again acknowledge, the pleasure of working with my colleagues on the board and with the town staff, and the team that as we move forward during a difficult period of time. And so, best wishes to everyone.
Thank you, Steve. And to you and Bonnie as well.
Thank
And to
you.
that beautiful granddaughter of yours too.
So meanwhile, I just want to point out,
It was Otis.
he was awake during the poem, but he fell asleep when Rob gave his report.
Where?
I barely see him. He's right.
Excuse me. I think he fell. How do you know he didn't fall asleep when you were giving your report?
Are we gonna have to have dog updates now?
He's been sleeping the entire meeting.
Yeah.
Well, love going out with a smile on all our faces. Thank you. I have just a couple of things. I want to thank, there's a couple in town that helped Santa get through town. And that was Mr. and Mrs. Norfolk, who live up on High Street. They allowed the town to use their beautiful sleigh as part of Santa's ride in town. And without that, Santa would not have been able to get to all the different neighbors in town, the neighborhoods in town. So thank you to the North Forks. It was greatly appreciated. And thank you to the person who allowed me to sit on a nice soft cushion, because the road got a little bumpy. And we attached a seatbelt because there were a couple of times that we hit Mach 1 trying to get to different locations in town. And looking at the video, the live streaming from WACA, it looked like I was in a vacuum, because the hair and even my hat just was, it was straight out. It wasn't hanging down on the side, which
You mean Santa's hat?
Yeah,
Santa's hat, yeah, Santa's hat. And so it was kind of interesting. But thank you to the Norfolks. It was a lot of fun. And I know Santa enjoyed seeing all the smiling faces of not only just the boys and girls in town, but also their moms and dads, who had a lot of fun doing it as well. So I think Santa's likes the idea of going around town and driving through town. And I'm sure that he'll let everybody know that that's the way to go from now on. So thank you to the North Forks and to the fire department and everybody involved in getting that done, and to the APD for their diligence in getting all the traffic stopped in all the different locations, and especially the 2 bike officers that were out there. A little chilly for sure, but it was great. I would like to thank the entire board and the folks at the White House, in the corner office especially, and the work that you all do. It goes unappreciated at times. We hear and we read, like you said, things on social media that can be very difficult to swallow, especially when we know all the work and effort that's been put into the things that you all do and we all do as a town and as a community and as volunteers. It's very easy to sit back on a Monday morning in that big, nice, warm chair and saying, hey, you should have done this. Well, you know what? Get involved. That's my thought. That's my thought for the new year. My new agenda and my new phrase: get involved. Matter of fact, Ashland, they started 35 years ago, and their motto was take part and be proud. How true it was 35 years ago as it is today, even more so, with all the things that are going on in town. So please take part and be proud of your town. It's okay to be, the Grinch, but at the same token, if you're not happy, make a difference and make the change. That's what it's all about, making change. So thank you to everybody, and to all those who work behind the scenes. It's greatly appreciated. It doesn't go unnoticed. WACA, thank you for everything that you have done over the years and this past year. And I look forward to all of you having a wonderful holiday with your family and your friends. Stay safe. And the last thing I want to remind people, even though it's going to be 63 tomorrow, we still have a parking ban that's in effect from the hours of 2 to 5 every evening. just every morning, just to make sure. We will be getting snow at some point in time. May not be in December, but surely at some point.
This
that possibly
Saturday,
can-
maybe.
Yeah, well, maybe Saturday. Maybe Saturday, but you never know. As long as it's not in Indianapolis, we don't have to worry about that. They're in a closed arena. So thank you all. So Jen, happy holidays to you. Brandy, happy holidays. Susan, Stephen, and Rob, and Michael, happy holidays to you. And to
Mark.
our only citizen participation, Merry Christmas to you, to Mark, and to your dad and everybody. I appreciate that. And
Same to all, and as everything should be, healthy, wealthy, and being wise.
healthy, wealthy. Wow. Where did that come
Thank you,
from?
Mark.
Thank you. We
Wealthy
appreciate
with
that.
friends that do understand, and
You're right.
that's
We
what
have
that
the wealth
wealthy.
of friendship. That's it. Good
Yep.
point.
Thank
Good
you.
point. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everyone, and
Right,
thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
Happy holidays,
holidays.
everyone.
Bye.
Night,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
We'll see you all
Bye.
next year.